you kind of elaborate what you had in mind, like just a general idea of about this topic?
Okay, yes, I got you. So the way I think about it is this. So there's one way of, okay, so anytime a new technology or whatever it is comes on the scenes, one very instinctive reaction most people have is just to completely avoid it. Why? Because of the fear of something that comes with it.
Hmm.
And usually sometimes it's a rational fear. It's a valid fear. Um, so like for example, sometimes you fear depending on it too much, right? And with any technology, there's pros and cons. Even books have pros and cons. Um, but the way I view transcendence is you're not avoiding it in a way where you lose access to the benefits.
Mm.
So the goal of it, this is why I said discernment, is how can you get the benefits of AI without its negatives? In
Right.
this case, the negative is dependence. So how could you use AI that actually makes you less dependent than you were before using it? Um, Rather than using AI where you become more dependent. Just to give you guys a possible example to go off of, um, people started using laptops, so they didn't have to actually go to work now. They could
Mm.
just do remote work, right? Because you just do the same thing over your laptop. That process is going to be enhanced more with AI because now not only is that a possibility, you can also have AI doing work for you. Um, so that frees up your time to do what you want more, right? Just as an example. And that's one way I'm thinking about it. Another way I'm thinking about it, though, is also like in terms of just intelligence. Like, how could we leverage it in a way to make us smarter rather than over relying on it being so smart to be able to solve all our problems or something like that? The sort of like utopia that a lot of tech bros envision.
Mm.
Um, Whereas we know the danger with that, there's as the it being used as a sedative. So it gives you an excuse not to think,
Mm.
but it's actually that's in a sense an illusion. Um, so that's kind of how I'm approaching it. Also, the first person to really mention it was Mustafa in our talk, the dangers of AI. The first thing he said, he's like the number one danger is just for him is just dependence.
Mm.
Um, and if you notice, typically you are vulnerable to what you depend on. Um, so these are, I think, like maybe general starting points to kind of see like how I thought about the topic. Um, yeah, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for providing that context. One thing that comes to mind is somebody talked in a similar way, like gave an example of calculators. When calculators were like digital calculators were invented, people had this fear that we wouldn't be able to calculate as like arithmetic operations were taught in schools, and that like everybody who was working in some kind of data analysis field was really good at arithmetic operations, and like it was just a skill that you developed. But when calculators were introduced, people were really afraid that we would lose that ability and that would make us dumber. Um, but what ended up happening is like calculators allowed us to do a lot more things than before. And similarly, with tractors, for example, like tractors were introduced like mechanical tractors, machines. Before that, people used to plow their fields with animals, and there was hesitation. Like with each generation, there's always this hesitation that our abilities that we have developed as a culture are going to atrophy because of this introduction. And that does happen, in my opinion. But what also happens is I would say the level of abstraction gets raised. So meaning that we were able to do certain levels of calculations, arithmetic calculations, um, pretty fast before calculators. But because calculators made it really easy, we were able to do a lot more. So we didn't have to keep that skill, or we didn't have to maintain that skill. And similarly, with factories, for example, or machines like um, embroidery, all of these things, um, people have feared that, and their fears about the atrophy of skills have actually, in most times, uh, come true. But they, on the other side, the the ability has always increased. So with AI, I had this fear earlier this morning, a couple of hours ago. I've been working on this a change on in a software that I'm working on, where we're moving from one system to another system, and I'm using Windsurf, which is a code editor that has integrated AI, and I had asked it to do this migration, and it's also kind of running into confusions, like when it can't understand the bigger picture and can't keep track of the all of the things. It runs into confusions and like contradicts itself and doesn't follow the original plan. So, and I needed to correct it, but I couldn't because I didn't understand what it was doing. Right? When you let it run, when you let it do the thinking, it just does the thinking for you. So you don't have the full grasp of what it is doing. So you can't correct it. And yeah, I felt a little bit apprehensive about that. That I don't know what's happening in this application, how this is being built. Um, but on the other hand, so much more is possible. Was something that used to take me days now takes me hours. Some things that used to take months, definitely, I've built a couple of applications that would have taken me months. Now they take maybe weeks. So it's definitely there is atrophy of skills in terms of I'm not using my debugging skills as much as I used to. I'm not building that mind map of the architecture as much as I used to. But on the other hand, it is doing that for me, and it's doing a lot more than I was able to. So that's my little take on that. Uh,
Mm. I just had a couple of internal mind blowns, but I'll save them for now. Curtis, you there?
Hey, I'm here. How are you guys?
Very good, very
Good,
good.
good. Hello, hello.
Uh, Curtis is a friend that I have from Clubhouse. We have some sometimes we have a talk or two. If you want to introduce yourself to to this current squad, uh, go for it.
Yeah, sure. My name is Curtis Page. I'm originally from the UK. Currently live in South Florida in the United States. Um, really interested in, well, professionally, I want to say I work in design, web development, and I'm a creative director for a um, mental health, behavioral health, substance abuse treatment center. Um, so I've been doing a lot of work, at least in the design, web, creative, video, content side of things for the healthcare industry for the most part. Um, Healthcare, legal, and athletic space. That's probably the areas I've had the most depth of experience in. As far as general interests, I really enjoy philosophy, um, talking about both epistemology, metaphysics. Metaphysics is probably one of my deepest areas of interest. And yeah, I like to meet new people. I like to engage with people that have different perspectives. I enjoy, yeah, just getting to know people that have a different viewpoint and then, trying to understand what their background is and yeah, like making friends and having conversations. So that's my bird's eye view perspective on me.
Fire.
Nice to meet you.
It's interesting to bird's eye view, and we're really happy to have you as well. An interesting background for show. To give you context on this conversation specifically, by the way, would you rather be known as Nomad or Curtis?
Either is fine. Nomad is just like sort of
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Oh yeah, digital nomad. Okay. Oh, so funny. We were just talking about that. So, the topic today was like transcendence of dependence, and what that kind of means is oftentimes when new technologies come in, there's pros and cons attached to it. And then the question becomes, how do you get the pros, especially from AI, without the cons associated with it? So one of the biggest cons with AI is like radical dependency, especially if you speak about like things like atrophying of the intellect, and things of that nature. And then we had a talk earlier, which was about the biggest danger and delight of AI. And then someone had mentioned that like it really comes down to dependence. And typically what you're very dependent on, you're vulnerable to. And that becomes, you could say, the a potential danger in the future as, super intelligence gets closer. That's a bit of the context. Yeah, that's a bit of the context. Did you have a take you want to start us off with after Raiz?
Me?
Indeed.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting subject. Like, makes a lot of sense. The muscles you don't exercise oftentimes don't become stronger or resilient when you need them most, I suppose. And I imagine that the same mental elasticity needs to be exercised in order to maintain its sharpness and its fluidity, in many different areas. So I can understand that. Yeah, especially with regards to technology, it's definitely an interesting subject, particularly with AI, because I'm of the opinion that I think that there's probably going to be an AI revolution, akin to something like an agricultural, an industrial, and even like a technological sort of smartphone style type of revolution. I think the way we educate people is going to lead us to leverage AI a lot more, and make it more efficient from grade school all the way up. I think how people learn languages is going to probably interface with the same thing. It's going to be leveraging AI in that same regard. I think that there's going to be a whole host of industries and jobs that I don't want to say collapse, but have to be transformed almost entirely because of what AI makes available. Yeah, so there's, in the same way the internet and social media gave access to a lot of people to almost be their own news outlet in many regards, the blog and to do those types of things. I think there's a lot of industries that, I think AI will make that available to a lot of people even further. So it's going to be hard to sort of gatekeep that. You're seeing a lot of like AI videos right now and this is sort of like still an early wave of what's going on within the overall sphere. But I imagine that there's going to be a huge paradigm shift with regards to the vulnerabilities and the benefits. I think information dissemination is going to be um, a lot more efficient. So I think that's a benefit. But I think there's going to be a huge change in how we model our economics, because if a lot of industries end up adopting AI and things become a lot more efficient and cost effective, then I probably foresee a lot of people like losing their jobs and having to pivot and maybe develop skills in other areas, or maybe develop skills with regards to how they use AI to solve problems in particular industries. So yeah, those are probably like the main ones that I see immediately. In my own space, um, so I'm doing a lot of writing right now. So I'm trying to write a book just modeling out my metaphysics, and periodically I'll refer to a different AI tool, whether it's like Grok or ChatGPT or U.com, and I'll put like a claim in and have it sort of challenge the position, but I try to avoid um, having it write for me because I don't want to lose at least my character and my approach and my style. But I imagine over time, people will have personalized systems that would be able to adopt, you can create a GPT or something like that that will be able to adopt your entire style and flow and language tendencies, and people might lean on that a little bit more and then lose that creativeness. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's vulnerabilities as well as advantages, and I imagine just like laptops and cell phones might have made handwriting less important in grade school because maybe every kid has a laptop. It might do the same thing for many things in certain industries from an AI perspective. But yeah, great topic.
Okay, fire. I got a lot from that. Just so you know. Um, okay, fire. Let's move on to the next homie. Let's see. Prince ups. Prince ups, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Um,
Yeah. So what was your first thought when you saw this? But then now that you kind of hear other people and heard my like literal description of what I thought the topic to be, what's your take?
I think it's like any other tool. We we inevitably do evolve. We do change. Humans are dynamic. The first thing that I thought of was like, let's say I was using a rock to hit nails into like a wooden thing or something like that. And then I switched to like a hammer, right? A hammer is a more efficient tool. It's more efficient at doing that specific task. Does it necessarily mean that I'm like, if I'm going to compare myself to my ability of using the rock to hit this nail, of course, I'm not going to be as good now that I'm using a hammer to do that same job. Let me give you another example. We used to use like a hose to, like, let's say you used to use horses, right? Horses is another type of technology to move from one place to another. And so cars came around, and the perspective would be that, oh, we don't use horses anymore to get around. So we're gonna lose the skill and ability to know how to take care of horses. Okay. And the last thing is like farming, for example, right? We now use tractors. We used to use different ways to farm, using hoes and like different things to till the land and cattle and that kind of stuff. And now we don't use that anymore. And so are we worse off because we start using some primitive skills and some primitive technologies specifically? That's what I'm thinking about, to accomplish something specific, right? I think we just got more efficient. We just got a lot better at it. Now, the way I kind of think about AI, thinking, words, language, all of those things are technologies. They're ways for us as spiritual beings to experience the world and navigate through it, to have a certain to achieve something, to have a certain experience, more or less. And so when I think about AI, I work with it all the time, right? So I'm Like I'm using AI right now. I don't see it as like, yes, I'm gonna lose some things, but are those things that I really care? Does losing them make me less of a person, or does losing them make me less of a person? One, but secondly, does losing them give me the ability to gain better skills and better tools and better experiences for me to actually have the experience I really want to have to get to the things I actually really care about? And lastly, are we just looking back at like horses and rocks and ways that we used to do things, and we're over glamorizing it and over kind of saying, oh, back in the day when we had horses, animals, that was fun, wasn't it? Yeah, but now I can get on a plane and go to the other side of the world. I can get in a car and drive across the country. And did we lose something in not taking care of horses? I don't know how to take care of a horse, but I don't think of it as like, oh man, I wish I knew how to take care of a horse. If I did, now I could. But there's an element of which I think we're glamorizing an aspect where, yeah, we're going to change. It is in our essence to adapt, to grow, to change. I see AI as a new technology, and that technology will make some of the ways we used to do things as obsolete, but my essence as a person isn't exemplified or diminished by my ability to use a specific tool. Tools will always come, tools will always go. Humans have always been around with tools, and we made tools, and that's kind of like the thing that we do. Our sense of self and our sense of essence to what it is as me as a human isn't tied to a specific way of thinking or a specific way of using a hammer or a horse. I'd say my essence as a person is tied more to the experience I want to have, right? And so if you prioritize using a rock or a hammer, or if you really care about horses and you like that, as a way to go around, I think that you should go through that experience and should go towards that experience, right? I do like when I hear people say that they don't let AI completely write all their papers, or they don't let AI do completely everything, because A, right now you probably shouldn't, but B, it is letting you do the things you like, right? You're expressing yourself, you're doing something with this tool, and you get to refine it. You get to engage with the experience you want to have on a higher dimension than if, for me, writing code. I wouldn't say that I liked writing code, but I liked the results of the code, right? And so now that I don't have to write the code, I can focus more on the results of it, and I get more results because I don't have to do the thing that is tedious. But I still go through the code. I still do systems engineering and software design and follow all those patterns. So my point is, and I think we're almost looking back and we're saying, oh, it's almost melancholy, and there's a nostalgia to it, where I kind of feel like we're saying, oh, AI is gonna replace and make us dumber and then do all these other things. But I kind of think, and what? Like that's natural. I think it's more unnatural to say that, oh, we're not gonna evolve with the tools that we create to make our lives better. But that's my feel about it.
Okay. I think I get your take. Essentially, not it's a natural part of the evolution, and glamorize the experience and the outcome over the way to get there, sort of thing. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let's go, Jafar.
Marhab. Yo, you guys basically covered the topic extensively. I would say I definitely agree with the fact of like AI being kind of a natural evolution, not necessarily specifically AI, but just the evolution of technology. I was thinking from kind of the jump that regardless of what we kind of here today do as individuals, we could definitely make sure to not become too dependent on it. But on a societal level, I think it's going to be a pretty major dependence. I wouldn't even be surprised, just based on what we're already seeing with like social media addictions and stuff like that, that people are going to really depend on it for all aspects of life. I wouldn't be surprised if you have categories of people that don't actually make decisions of like just simple things, activities to do daily without a AI consultant. That might be a little bit further down the line, people who grew up with it. And the resistance to it is I think a natural part. But ultimately, I don't really have any. I don't have anything major I'd like to add at this point. I just kind of think that we're probably gonna see dependence to it. And one thing, kind of, I was talking to Mustafa about this last night, is AI is probably gonna like it's gonna obviously like improve the capabilities of workers, but it's also most likely gonna be used by corporation like heads and executives, people on top. They're going to use it to just kind of slim down the employee list and how many people they actually have to pay. And those people are going to have to adapt in some way. I don't necessarily think there's an infinite amount of jobs that it's going to like be able to, like, not infinite, but an amount of jobs that'll be able to kind of replace the ones lost, whether it's in tech, whether it's in whatever field eventually. Like, it's always, yeah, like someone said, the economic model is going to have to change. I wonder if by that you meant like the governments are going to have to figure out what to do with people who, like, if like even further down the line when construction and stuff gets replaced, then you're going to have those people kind of need a job. Tech people might get like certain categories of tech people might get like replaced by it. So I mean, it's interesting. I'm kind of, at first, I think Hadi knows this, but I took a very paranoid approach to AI. I was just like, you know what? It's going to be used by governments to surveil. Warfare is going to become far more deadly, far more effective. And we're going to see a lot of crazy shit. But I think a healthier thing for me personally is just to accept that, just like how, as you guys have said, there's people who are mad about the replacement of horses. There's going to be people mad about AI kind of replacing whatever it may be. Just yesterday, at the philosophy club, one homie was kind of looking at Mezier's AI of like designs. He was making designs, and he was saying like in his field of graphic design or some shit that is becoming kind of like companies are opting out to use AI more, and like, so it's an interesting thing. I'm personally just, I'm here for the ride. I'm here to see what goes on. Again, I've barely used AI. I have made a decision kind of consciously, because I'm hoping to get into like the social work, mental health, addiction field itself. But I told myself that just in case in 5 years from now AI somehow fully replaces that too, human relations, I might as well start learning how to like make creative projects with it for fun, while also improving my own skill. Because at the end of the day, some people would use AI to kind of do whatever they want to do, but I'm more into, I like the actual process of creating art, the actual process of trying to create music. So I'll do it anyway. But then you could use AI to like do the extra shit. That, like, if I want to make like a comic book for you, that's something I want to do. If I want to make that, then I could subsidize a part of it to AI, and just engage in the, not the process of making, but the process of telling it what to make. As you guys have said, refining it, and then even just reading it myself. It's always better, I think, to have an attitude of acceptance in life. And it's always better to also just kind of, I guess the same thing. I was gonna say go with the flow is the same shit as acceptance, but yeah, you guys have been basically covered most fields. But just to sum up, I think transcending dependence is gonna be a challenge. Individuals will be able to do it, but we're gonna see, especially the kids coming up nowadays. If you're using it at age 13, by age 23, you're gonna be 10 years deep, and oh man, it's you're gonna be dependent. But hopefully regulations kind of keep things in check, and hopefully we don't allow people who are oligarchs, whatever, the richest of the rich, to just simply get richer because they're going to have the best AI systems.
Very fire. Okay, so kind of you have more like a I don't even think nuanced is the word. It's more like you're like swimming around. You're like,
I'm a
I
layman in the field,
you know?
bro. AI, tech. I don't know
No,
shit
no,
about
no.
it.
But I mean, it's in a good way. In a good way. It's like
No, I feel you.
interesting to see. Yeah. So
For me, I gotta be
Fire.
floaty, bro. I gotta keep it floaty because I don't really have the not the first hand experience or the tech knowledge. Like, I'm just here to learn and hear you guys' opinions, and then I share my opinion as just a human who's barely used it. I'm just along for the ride, and I just hope that we don't get some Matrix shit going on, or we don't get, I mean, Terminator shit going on, But hey, who cares? It looks like we're going in a different direction. So
Type shit. Well, always fire to hear your view. Okay. Ridwan.
Yeah,
What's
so
cooking?
from my perspective, like the way I think about it, I think people are already like dependent on AI to some extent. Like people have like what do you call them? The virtual boyfriends and girlfriends. Then like we use like the AI for like assisting with homeworks, for instance, and like even for implementing like changes to the resume, checking for grammar. And I think like we are already dependent on AI, like already. So I don't know how much more dependent it can get, like unless like you're having like AI feed you or something.
Sorry to cut you off, but people could probably get AI to give them the optimal diet, and then they'll never go out of the optimal diet.
They
But that
already
could be a good use.
they already do. Like I've seen like people have AI apps for like what do you call it, like the gym maximizing and everything. Like they get AI for like maintaining their looks and all. So I don't see like how much more dependent you can be without like straight up AIs controlling the robots, if that's what we want to do.
Ooh, all right. Can I ask you a question? Just a follow up to you.
Yep.
I think
Just before we
the
explore
worst
that,
thing could be just that humans end up being less of humans because of AI, right? So, like, the worst thing that can happen is that humans start acting more like AI instead of humans because of how much reliant we become to AI. We end up, because AI is a mimic of us as people, right? Like how we think and the neurons or whatever, neural networks are. But what I want to hear your thoughts about this, about what you think, if because the dependence is good, like the dependence is kind of there. Nature has its own interdependence between animals, but how would you feel if you were talking to me, right? And everything that I saying to you is something an AI told me because of my reality bubble. It's showing me the information that makes me feel good. It's feeding me the right kind of foods, and I'm never really there's that spontaneity of life. There's that imperfectness that humans are. But that does create this kind of like naturalness to things, right? Naturalness to me, to you. And so the more that we're stripping away those things, I have the perfect diet from an AI. I have the perfect news cycle from an AI. The AI tells me the perfect books that I can agree with without really challenging me, or without really like me going out of my way to adapt to something new. Then what I kind of want to connect with you on is the interdependence could yield a sense of mimicry that humans end up mimicking AI and stop being humans. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, I feel like it's a more of like a life imitating art and like art imitating life thing. Like, we often like have an idealized version of like how our reality should be, and like we expect reality to be that way. With AI, I think like that will just be a bit more uh what's the word I'm looking for? A bit more overdone maybe, but like I think things like that are already happening. It's just like whether like it will be taken to an extreme or not.
just before we expand on that, um, Prabhu, are you there?
Yeah.
What's
Hello,
up? What's up?
everyone. What's up?
You want to give yourself, or I could even give him an intro. So me and Prabhu, we had a couple of talks on intelligence before on this app called Clubhouse, kind of like Curtis. Um, and then I kind of mentioned this group to him right before I started making these calls. And then he lives on a whole different time zone, so he typically couldn't make it. But then, now I guess it's early in the morning or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 early in the morning. So, and I feel great to join you guys. I mean, it's just a few minutes joining in and lots of insight.
Glad to have
I'm still on the bed, but I think I can share some of my thoughts with you guys. So, so transcending the dependence. I think I have this kind of um same somewhat thought or feeling about transcending the dependence on a tool that I have that I use for swimming. Because without this tool, I can swim only like 400 meters or 600 meters tops. But with this tool, I can like swim like 3,000 meters per session, and I can somewhat after 3,000 meters, I can um, rest for like 10 minutes, and then I can go another 1 to 2,000 meters, something like that. So it's like transcending the dependency of the, you know, of the uh, if I go if I'm going to swim, I'm going to use that tools whatever. So if I don't have the tools, if let's say I forgot to bring the tools with me when I go to the swimming pool, I will just I will cancel my session, and then I will go back and then find another time to go swimming with the tools, because I'm really heavily dependent on the tools for swimming, because I can just swim for like 400 or 500, but with that tools I can swim like 2,000 meters each session. So it's like transcending the idea of dependency of the tools. But with I don't think it's transcend as yet, because when is it Princeps, I don't think AI has mimicked our intelligence. I think it's just mirroring our intelligence. And I remember having talked with Noah that if AI would mimic somewhat human behavior, and it would put um like our kind of selfishness and our kind of idiocy within AI, see, and then it becomes us rather than us become AI. So mimicking probably the paradox that the AI somewhat developers have to deal with, because in the end, if AI can mimic um, human, let's say in Clubhouse, people tend to go to rooms where not just intelligent people there, but they just want to find silly people, you know. So if there's AI that can somewhat replace those kind of persona in Clubhouse, and in Clubhouse will just make some kind of AI that make those rooms, people will go to the rooms and find that kind of persona, even though it's not human, but because the AI mimics human within mimic their foolishness, mimic their, so it's not just intelligence, so that's why it's becoming human, but it's defeat the purpose of AI, that going to bring you solution that it was there in the first place, to make people easily find better ways, because we tend to have our bias on our foolishness, or our laziness, or our desire, while AI is somewhat built to minimize those bias, right? Yeah, uh, I think that's what can I share. But yeah, and the tools that I use, if you guys want to know, it's called Power Breather. So you can breathe within water, full oxygen, and then you blow out carbon dioxide, and it's separate. So everything that you breathe is full oxygen. So it's just like breathing on land, but inside the water. That's from me, guys. Thank you so much.
Fire, interesting. Maybe I missed the part of missed what you're trying to get at with the water and oxygen and carbon dioxide thing, but
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So most of the snorkel that we use, when you inhale oxygen, you exhale carbon dioxide, right? But it goes
Hmm.
to the same host. And then when you inhale again, you will inhale your carbon dioxide. So by time, if you don't realize it, you can get poisoning by the amount of carbon dioxide on your brain. And then you can somewhat lose yourself inside the water, or you can lose consciousness inside water. So that's kind of dangerous, yeah. But the tools, you will inhale all oxygen, so it's easy, and it's just like breathing normally, yeah.
Okay, so here's a lot of what I've heard so far. So it seems like with every new tool, there does come a pro and a con, but at the same time, there was a untapped skill you didn't even know you could use. So, for example, Princeps with the rock and hammer analogy. When people were using rocks, they didn't have the skill to use a hammer. When people were riding horses. They didn't have the skill to use cars because there were no cars to use. So what comes with every new technology, while one of its purposes is a partial death of the old, at the same time, it's creating new. So the way I like to view it is if I light up a candle and there's a shadow each candle has tied to it. So where there's light, what where there's birth, there's death. And I think that's kind of very human as well. Like literally as when we're born, we're also in a sense marked to die in some way. In a maybe a beautiful but also a interesting way. So with AI specifically, maybe we were way more used to answering questions, being the answerer, the creator. But in this case, we are now being more, at least, questioners to get our results. So that's a whole new skill. How can you ask the right questions to get the result you want? Now, we typically do have this skill in many instances, but I think that's more emphasized now than before. Being able to ask the right question rather than give the right answer. In the meantime, maybe our answering ability slightly diminishes, but maybe our questioning ability enhances. But then the question becomes, in terms of like transcending dependence, it's what do you want to depend on and what don't you want to depend on? Like what's the you wish to keep? Actually, not just wish to keep. What's the you wish to amplify and expand versus the you that you wish to, that really you didn't need, which was, let's say, being able to clean up horse poop on the road. Right? Oh, Jacob's here. The you that's able to clean up horse poop on the road. So that's, I guess, one big aspect of it. And I would say, if we were to draw that line, I would say our humanity, our innate passions and experiences we want to have is that thing we wish to either amplify. But I would say this, now that I think about it, the number one place which I see the atrophy coming in, actually there's two places that I can think of, like where the real, like, people are really getting more dumb because of AI. The first place is school. So in school, people are just like raging through. I did it as well. I'm totally guilty. The exact same thing. I raged through every single course, as much AI as I could possibly use and prompt engineer. Now that happens to be a skill I have now, which is great. Actually, a very important skill. But in terms of like the actual knowledge, like, do I know linear algebra? Not really. Discrete math? Not really. A few other things that I just totally AI'd my way through. Even my ability to program basic things without AI, gone, right? But I did learn a new skill in the meantime. Another place is the workforce. And I think the common thing between these two is when it comes to school and when it comes to the workforce, it's two things that are presented and framed as results driven, primarily. It's very results driven. It's not process driven. Even if there's a claim that like there's an underlying process there, the reality on the ground is it's very results. Like if the results aren't there, you're fired. If the results aren't there, you get an F. That's the bottom line. That's the reality. That's the ground of it. So the problem there, though, I don't think is AI. The problem there is we created a system where, number one, people are to find livelihood and people are to learn. But in that system, we primarily focused on markers and benchmarks. So it was almost inevitable that if a tool could replace them for cheaper, they'll do it. In fact, they do often. That's why we have child labor and this, that, and the third. Like if it can happen, it does happen. I think the problem there is the actual systems itself, the way they're oriented to be very results focused, grade driven. It's either you hit these XYZ criteria, etc. But if you flip that let's say I'm writing, like Curtis was saying, and funny enough, I'm actually writing something myself, and I try not to use AI in my pure writing. I find I don't even need it. I'm a decent writer without it. But if I were to just like ChatGPT the entire book, it actually loses the reason I wanted to write that book to begin with. It wasn't just to have this outcome. Another thing, chess. I can go on online chess right now, find and connect it to whatever API of some like grand ultimate deep blue chess engine and just smoke everyone. Right? I might get banned, but assuming I wouldn't get banned, why wouldn't I do that? Because I actually want to play chess. I actually care about my own intelligence. I wouldn't even feel that good if I beat them. It's just like whatever. I want to play chess, and to this day, people are still playing chess at a high level. Humans without the machine involved. And chess engines have been far smarter than humans at chess for a very long time now. So that's my initial kind of summative understanding of things. Though I would say, in terms of the answer to the thing I want to amplify, I'd say human intelligence itself as a concept is something to not let go of. So this is where I might disagree with you a bit, Princeps, because I think when AI is trying to master every single subject at a PhD level and above, what that's essentially for saying in some way is that we could find every aspect of human intelligence and make it better than that. That's the super intelligence goal. That's the actual like vision they have in mind. So if that's the case, I think you actually have an instance where the tool is not just a car rather than a horse, but the tool itself is actually taking away from the human part of it. I think one thing that has made humans is intelligence in some way, their consciousness, in some way, shape, or form. And specifically with the specifically in this case, it could be a very big opportunity to enhance our intelligence, but I think it's an unintelligent move to rely on an external intelligence more than becoming more intelligent. I think ignorance itself is the greatest danger, not just in AI, but in general. Like ignorance is actually dangerous for a species, just as a concept. But yeah, that's some takeaways I got so far. I'll throw it out.
Sorry, I just gotta go. Like, thank you for all the insights and everything. It's just like I am just a bit busy today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Glenn,
See you again.
shaloms.
Adios, Rodolfo. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, Jacob. What's up? You wanna give your take? You're a bit late.
What was the topic or the origin of the topic?
Transcendence of dependence. So imagine like overly relying on AI, atrophy, dangers that come with radical dependence. How do you transcend that sort of thing? That's kind of the topic of conversation.
Yeah, I think the object of desire for like AI, if it were to like take us over or whatever, would be to take away critical thinking skills. So you could do practically anything with these tools. But the one thing you can't do is teach yourself how to think critically, because you can only critically think about information that you've acquired yourself. And AI is really good at masking information or burying the most important stuff underneath a sea of like literal slop. And yeah, so I think that once people start using AI as a tool of reason, they're much more likely to become subservient.
Okay, yeah, I partially agree. Um,
How to solve
Yeah.
that is another question.
mhm.
Yeah, how do you guys develop critical thinking skills?
So I just like read books and think about stuff, and then I don't know. My brain does the rest.
I think. Well, first I'll throw out the Princeps or Raiz, either one.
Yeah.
Princeps, if you wanna go for.
You can go first. You've had your hand up for a while, and I put up what I was gonna like respond to that. But I want to hear your thoughts because you're very smart too.
No, I was actually going to deviate slightly from this topic, so I wanted, this topic to wrap up a little bit before I do that.
Okay. I do want to reply to Noah. It's more of a question, but do you think we became mathematically dumber from the invention and the use of a calculator? Calculators do work, right? If we used to do that stuff in our head, we invented calculators as far back Persians and ancient civilizations. Do you think we got worse? We got dumber mathematically because we offloaded the mathematical processes, especially the most complex ones, outside of our own heads into different machines, right? Initially, it was analog machines where you move like tablets across to do math. Then later on, it became more or less a digital calculator. So my position is that it's easy for us to say, "Oh no, this tool is gonna it's gonna do X to humans." But if you look at historically speaking, tools have always done X to humans, and um, are we far better off than we were 100, 200, 1,000 years ago? I'd say that the tools that have been invented for the past 2,000 years have made humans better and has evolved society a lot better. Than me kind of saying that, oh no, this is the last tool. AI is a very it is a very complicated tool because it's modeled on how we think and a lot of things about a human. I'm definitely not downplaying the importance of this. But I'm also not. There's a balancing act where I realize it's dangerous, but I realize its possibilities, its capabilities, its ability for it to help us. And then I also do want to kind of talk about what Jacob kind of brought up. Um, in that, in simple terms, you can kind of hear what he said. How does he go about critical thinking? He goes about it with reading books, spending time thinking, and then his brain kind of does the rest of it. There's this, I do also want to attribute some sense of humans are intrinsically smart. And there's this essence of like, I don't want to downplay what a human does in the sense that, oh, this tool is it's gonna like overtake what a human is capable of doing, and just kind of say that over time humans have been adapting, growing, evolving, and changing, especially mentally, to the point that I kind of feel like it is almost a disservice to the essence and the intelligence, the inherent intelligence in all humans, to be able to adapt, grow, and like grow with changes in society. Say that, oh, this new tool is going to fundamentally upend all the hundreds of thousands of years of like human growth and human changes. And so for me, when I kind of think about it, is maybe we'll become more. It'll be a symbiotic relationship. That's the most hopeful thing. From my perspective, where it's that this tool, as in with any tool, um, like a calculator, yeah, am I relatively worse at doing math? Maybe. But I have this thing all the time with me, right? I have a phone that has a calculator app all the time with me. When I need to do that thing, I can be able to just pull it out and use it. And so there's no need for me to keep like mental space to have to do the math part if I don't really care about it. I think it really just comes down to like personal preferences, more or less, but also the essence that these tools eventually become so ubiquitous that 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 fear of like, oh, I lost something to gain knowledge or to gain the experience or to gain a new skill set, because I stopped doing that thing that I was doing inefficiently. I think it doesn't have to be an either or. It doesn't have to be like, oh, humans are gonna get worse off because of this tool. I think we'll change, and change is what I'm more or less saying here. Is that it's good to change, but we should be more critically aware, as Jacob is pointing out, about those changes. I think Hafar also mentioned like he is using AI, but he also kind of notices that he's making a conscious decision as a human, as an intelligent, sentient being. He's making a decision that, oh, but here's the things I care about that I don't want AI to take away from me. So there is that essence of like, AI will do a bunch of things, but I'm trusting that humans will have the capability and the ability to evolve and discern what is meaningful and valuable to them that they would like to keep. So it's not that, to just kind of go back to my question, are we dumber mathematically because we invented and continue to use the calculator?
Okay, Rais, you wanna take that?
Yeah. So my view on this is, I guess one of my views on this is the opposite, which is, so just to set a little bit of context, the way I'm thinking about this particular topic is evolution in general, like evolution in nature, usually tends to produce um, specializations for different creatures, right? There's different tiers of um, work that needs to be done, and there are creatures that are specialized in each tier and each kind of work in that. For example, like there's fungus, there's you know, bacteria, then there are insects, and even like on a savanna, for example, or in a jungle, there are predators, preys, there's the preys grazing on the different kinds of grasses and all that. It creates a system where everything is specialized, and the modern economic engine of this world, people call it capitalism, but capitalism has been muddled over time. I would say is this engine is also creating optimizations. For example, like we started with the industrial revolution, right? So the ability to create clothes, for example, has been optimized to such an extent that there are now, like, the one factory that can produce clothes for 10 million people, that would have taken maybe 10,000 or 100,000 people before. Um, like tying this to this conversation we're having, um, there are some technologies in the recent past that have actually improved the human experience. For example, the internet, I would say, has generally, internet has contributed to bad things, but in it has contributed to a lot of good things as well, like this, just talking to random people all over the world and sharing ideas. But on the other hand, social media, for example, like it was supposed to connect us more, but social media has gone through the same iteration cycle of optimization and evolution. And what it has optimized for is attentions, grabbing attention, and it has created good outcomes for the people who are running these companies or own these companies. But for the rest of the people, in general, you could say that social media, it has degraded the human experience. We have less friends now than we used to 20, 30 years ago. We're talking to our neighbors less, we're talking to our parents, siblings less. We're less happy in general than we used to. So, there's different kinds of optimizations happening. I'm worried that with AI, we might get into the same kind of dependence. So now with social media, we have this dopamine fueled dependence on it, and most people are not capable because of our biological nature. Like even the people who are capable, like most people, like in some people, the ability to resist that dopamine cycle is harder than other people. And even for the people where it's not harder, it's pretty hard to resist that dopamine cycle in the normal society today. Um, so that's one thing that I'm worried about. And then, you can also see parallels in other forms of our society, like, you know, uh, um, social media is one thing, drugs is another thing. We humans figured out that this particular substance makes us happy, and we kind of evolved that to its purest form of euphoria. And now we have these like marijuana, other kinds of drugs that can just make us happy. Um, so has that improved the human experience? Has that made the human experience better? The same thing with beauty. Like human brains are wired to recognize some patterns, and we see those patterns as beautiful in other humans. And now we have like Botox and different kinds of enlargements on different genders to like hit those neurological connections better, and then it looks more beautiful. But I wouldn't say that it has optimized human experience. um so that's one part of my rant, but I'll finish on that.
I can
uh
respond.
yeah.
I could just respond. I think I agree with you that I don't think the current state of social media and especially drugs, weed becoming like 100% THC and stuff like that, I don't think it's good for humans. One thing I always feel, and I feel like AI is, and I would love all your opinions on this, all of you guys. AI is like exponentially increasing the speed of the speed of change in our society, and as humans, like in the past, yeah, like the change from horses to cars must have been a big one, but how many cars were there? How fast were the cars relative to the horses? How like intrusive was it to everyone? I'm sure there was cowboys that kept running around on their horses right when there still were cars, but the cars are just in the cities where there's roads. And then these guys are anyway, like so AI and the beauty and like the social media kind of replacing our need for real socialization. We're all kind of satisfied. I've been watching a lot of podcasts about the dopamine stuff, like how it's so easy now, like fast food, Uber Eats, all the shit. Like I don't think it's improved us. And I think you're right about the beauty aspects of everything. Everything is super, like they call it like a supernatural stimuli or some shit, like a super, like something like that, where it's not something you're used to in nature, whether it's drug, whether it's social media. So I think now we're in a transitional phase, and maybe this is my bias because I'm living in this time, but I feel like we're probably the time of the most rapid change. Like from when I was born in like 2001, it was like there was phones and shit. I remember the BlackBerry era. I was very young then, but and then like the shift to kind of what we're at now, where like relative to when I was a kid, this is almost sci-fi stuff. Like you got AI coding for coders, you got AI making perfect replicas of art and even and like videos that look indistinguishable, kind of being like anything you can generate. Like this is it's not far sci-fi, it's not like Star Wars shit, but it's like it's up there, you know. And I do think it's scary. It's something that every individual has to contend with, and we gotta be like we are adaptive, but as we're forced to keep adapting to like from the early 2000s, and then social media comes, and then now social media is booming, and then what's going to be next, VR, whatever it may be, we're just have to adapt. And I guess people who are younger might have a better chance, you know, but like a better chance to adapt, I mean. But it's a matter, I don't think it's I like that you brought that up, and it's not necessarily good. We do have to, you know, people that are prone to addiction have to do a lot of work to not like be super hooked on social media. Anyone could be hooked on social media, all that stuff. But one thing on another flip side is I always think that, you know, if I just take my own personal biases out of it and I think of like the human race as a greater thing, I'm like thinking AI is probably what's going to help us get to colonize other planets. It's probably what's going to help us get to like if there is you know near or faster than light speed travel ever, if that's even physically possible, AI will probably help us figure it out. Like I don't know anything about AI and physics actually, if it does help physicists in any way, but I'm sure that it's coming, and we're like it's just has good aspects, but we just have to we have to be careful. You know, capitalism, I do think has a bad rap, you said, or something, but does have. I think it deserves it. It's a crazy system that allows few to exploit the many. But I try to be optimistic. I try to be optimistic.
So
What was that about the latest?
You're muted, by the way.
yeah, far.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
I know. I said I'm done speaking. You could go into that. I'm curious about.
Okay.
yeah, I was just gonna mention before someone else takes it. The most recent Nobel Prize in physics was won by a pure AI scientist.
So he
Um,
like a pure AI, as in as someone
like
using AI, or
bro is the godfather of like modern AI, how it is today. Like that's what his thing was. Like why we have ChatGPT the way it is today pretty much goes back to this dude, Jeffrey Hinton. And he just won the Nobel Prize in physics just for that because of how much influence it's having in physics.
so not because of a specific breakthrough that was made, but because of
Oh, yeah.
that will have based on what it's at. That's crazy.
But yeah, a little bit of both. So there's some specific breakthrough, but yeah,
That's
at the
crazy
end.
either way. So that's the good aspect, but as individuals, we have a lot of work to do, but as a society, we're at an exciting place.
Okay. I just got a comment to make because there's a really interesting point that you guys are kind of dancing around but haven't quite hit just yet, and it's basically the term I think that the media uses. It's called enshittification.
Yep.
Basically, whenever stuff becomes so simple or so watered down through technology or just social drivel that the whole thing just kind of becomes pointless or worthless. Um, the the thing that I wanted to comment on in that vein is so we get ourselves wrapped around the creative process that AI uses, where it's more generative, just kind of trying stuff out and seeing what sticks. Um, Using those tools is fine, but it starts to really fall apart in society whenever we stop using the tools as a means of, just like creative expression. We start using it as a means of like backing up arguments and whatnot. I I think we're starting to see that right now, where like my parents' generation, what they would do is they would immediately like Google something as soon as there was like a conflict in a conversation. They'd be like, "All right, let's Google it and find out." Now it's going to like let's call our AI bots or like start up our AI research engines and shit, and then go and battle it out that way. And I think that that is like the enshittification of human cooperation because it's no longer about trying to figure out knowledge for the sake of like mutual benefit. It's all about figuring out knowledge just so that you can like dunk on the other person or whatever. Um, that's a major change that I've seen that personally kind of like scares the shit out of me because people are naturally willing to like fight and whatnot, especially ignorantly. Like people love to ignorantly fight, but the idea of ignorance is kind of going away really quickly. Um, because of these tools giving us access to information that everyone could say like, oh, I had the entire internet in my pocket. Well, now I have a research agent that has the entire internet in its pocket and can easily explain any high level to low level and all the connections in between those topics almost instantaneously. um, so that comes back to my original point, I guess, of the whole critical thinking thing, where as long as we keep our critical thinking and our ability to actually rationalize through that thought, and we don't do the same thing that we do with headlines that we do with AI, where it's like, oh, I read this headline, it must be true. Fuck. If we stay away from that branch of the fuckery, then I think that AI is actually going to add to it, similar to how computer or calculators or whatever added to like everyone else's lives. It's just, are you using the tool to add to your life, or are you using the tool to take away from your life and somebody else's life? It's dual purpose, and we'll never get away from that. Um, I really hope that we don't get ourselves into a position where that end shitification of human interaction becomes the default, because I can see it kind of moving that way. Kurtz?
Yeah, no, I think you bring up some interesting points. I think AI has almost like this built-in mitigating effect against the pitfalls that you mentioned, namely like irrationality and poor reasoning and let's say misinformation. It's not perfect, but I think it probably has we have a better chance of being better informed by such tools. If let's just say the developers are including that within the algorithmic essentials, right? Like, Twitter has like Grok, and you can ask Grok about the truth of a particular post, and it'll pull some articles from somewhere, or it'll aggregate and disseminate information according to what, let's just say, it deems accurate. Whereas I think that's great, and I think if the tool has built within it the means of self-criticism and self-regulation and corrective measures, I think that's I think that's a strength. One of the things that's a problem that we face right now, as that's a somewhat of a significant problem, is there is so much misinformation everywhere, and it's up to us to sort of like filter through the weeds. This is why sort of like these internet debates go on so long, and then you have like these spirals and back and forths, and it's like, well, my article says, and well, my source says, and my source, and it's like this branching tree of just, who has the best authoritative source, and oftentimes nuances are forgotten. But I think I'm inclined to believe that it will improve much better than it is now, when AI is involved, especially if misinformation is prioritized. Obviously, you can have AI do whatever you want it to do, but yeah. One of the things that I'm actually really looking forward to in AI is basically eliminating like certain diseases and things like that. I think that's a huge area that we can tackle, because if we can model like genomes and we can test things out just theoretically using AI, and then we can have insight on pathways to, let's say, synthesizing those things chemically, or exploring different ways in which we can tackle something. I think it's going to have a significant influence on what we're able to cure, even within the next 5 years. So those are my thoughts.
Leighton. Was good, G.
For East, but Leighton, by the way, is gonna be listening in. He's just he's cooking up some stuffs, but
Welcome.
Hello, welcome. One of so what Curtis mentioned, actually there was a recent advancement in medicine powered by AI, powered by the same technology, that kind of technology that powers ChatGPT's AlphaFold 2, I think, where they have been trying to solve protein folding. The protein folding is a problem when you're developing drugs. How the drug interacts with the cells and the cell wall and the other systems in your body. How it like if you're building something that is going to work in the endocrine system, how does the shape of it unfold when it actually enters and is processed by your body. And that has been like one of the major issues in terms of developing drugs for specific diseases, and it has been essentially solved recently. I think that was one of the other Nobel prizes. Was it, Noah, do you remember? It might have been the same Nobel Prize for AI where the research team was granted a Nobel Prize because of the impact it's going to have, and it's already being used to develop a lot of new drugs. Um, the other thing that I wanted to mention was like what I was talking about before in terms of optimization of different things, and social media, fast food, even packaged food is like I really love Miss Vicky's, and I can't stop eating them, especially the dill pickles flavor. And it's just like they have really figured out the exact right formulation to tickle your brain so that you'll just keep at it. So I just try, like I now buy the smallest package available, and I buy like only a couple of them, so that when I run out, it's gonna take me a while to actually get to the store and get new ones. Um, but the other side of this is like, as we've seen with the industry, like the factories have optimized for production, and the supermarkets, like this is one of the things that, like, come from Pakistan, and there are not a lot of supermarkets, so there's small shops in every street, pretty much. And there's shop vendors who are running these streets, and the economic benefits of that, the thing that you buy, are very distributed, and they're very local in the community. Um, but with these supermarkets that are present in the more western part of the world, or I guess in some of the Middle East as well, um, the the economic benefits are very concentrated. But because of the way the incentives are set up in this system, we cannot avoid it. Like, people want to buy cheap things, right? Like, I want to get the best value for my money because I want to have more money, because that will allow me to get more things done, or have more things, or fulfill more of my desire in the future. But the best value that I get from the money is from these concentrated entities that are going to take away the money from the local community and into the pockets of these huge entities. So that's one of the things that I worry about. And if we play this out, and you've seen this already in the last 3 years, where people have been going, like companies have been going through mass layoffs, where like 10,000, 20,000 people, 30% of the workforce has been laid off, and things are more efficient now, which means that there are more profits, and less people are required to do more than they were able to do before. And if you play this out, it is actually very much possible that we keep going this way, and we keep getting to less and less of a workforce, and more concentration of power and ability to do things in the hands of those people. And the other side of this problem is that the incentives are set up the wrong way. Like, in both sides, we are incentivized to buy from these huge entities or subscribe to these huge institutions, and they are incentivized to cut the workforce and create more efficiency. So you can get to a point, like if you've seen that movie Elysium, where there's this huge um, kind of artificial satellite society that's like living above the earth, and the rest of the people are just workers, and these people, like, immortal. They have this machine that just repairs your body, and you never get old, you never get any disease. Anyways, this is one of those things about dependence that I worry about, because the incentives are set up the wrong way.
That's a great point, man. We got to figure out the incentives, because you're right about that. We don't, capitalism in general doesn't really incentivize the best human to producer relationship. And obviously the producers are humans, but you get what I mean. That's a good point.
It's interesting.
I would
What? Go ahead.
I would just say, I would argue that the incentives have been the same, like, it doesn't really matter if you're in capitalism or communism. The incentives to own all of production and minimize the total number of headcount you have to pay in the process has always been there, and it
Yeah.
probably always will be.
I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily advocating for capitalism, or for communism. But I mean, in general, we do need a change in incentive. Like hopefully the AI utopia, if that is a thing that even happens, includes a world where basic human needs are met and human like creative endeavor, physical or whatever endeavor humans want to engage in is also incentivized. Like people right now are incentivized to be creative in their free time, but for the like it is I still think the point, like, yeah, the incentives are always kind of screwy, but hopefully part of our evolution, part of us becoming a galactic civilization or whatever, includes a world where the incentives are different. Like we do want better incentives. We don't want people to be incentivized to just maximize their own personal profit, which is there's nothing wrong with. I would love to maximize my profit. I'm definitely gonna try that in my life to make as much money as possible. But I do recognize, considering not just the third world, just here in Hamilton, there's like a homeless issue that's just crazy. It's like, but the you're right though. The incentives have always been screwed, but I also think that right now the incentives are just maximally screwed
Yeah.
up. Maybe not more than before, maybe the same. I don't really know, but capitalism, communism, we need a better system. Humanism, we need the humanism system. That's what we need.
I think one of the issues now that has not been an issue before is the ability to do things has exploded, right? Like if you think about it, 10,000 years ago we were farming, and one person could do only so much, and then industry, and a person could do 10x more maybe, or 100x more. Now we can do maybe 1,000 times more than a person with just their bare hands, or basic a set of tools. In the future with AI, what we are looking at is one person, especially when the money and all of those things that already exist in the hands of those people, the power that already exists in the hands of those people is enormous. Their ability is just almost infinite, like when combined with the future versions of AI. Um, so they are like the cards are stacked in their favor instead of our favor, and the stacking is so different. Like we are at level 5 or 6, and they're at 5,075 or something. So that's one of the bigger differences that I see.
On Jafar's
Curtis, you had
point,
a
sorry.
go ahead, Jing. Or Curtis, if you
Yeah, Curtis, if
you're raising
you've
your
had your hand up, you take it.
I agree, Curtis.
Sorry,
Those
no,
who
I
are
had my hand up by accident.
okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
On Jafar's point, there was a pretty big shift in incentives, I think, like from after World War II and onward, just around the world generally. It went from being, more free time, time spent with family, time spent studying own like hobbies or whatever. Um, yeah, so somewhere after World War II, there was just this turn where it became more about work. And I think when that shifts of incentive from personal, family, and hobby time went towards work time, like the soul basically went with it. And that's really what it was for almost that. I've got friends of mine that I honestly don't even recognize anymore because whenever I look in their eyes, they're just so burnt. I don't know. That to me is really the cost of whatever the fuck went on over the last 70 or 80 years.
Yeah, we live in a workaholic culture. We live in a culture that motivates you based on, in my opinion, based on what you see in social media. We always think we need more, and this is from some book called Daring Greatly. Brene Brown always says we live in the, I don't know if she called it the more of culture or the never enough culture, but we always kind of have ingrained in us from external factors and maybe internal factors that whatever we're doing is not enough. If we work, we better work and exercise. If we work and exercise, we better have an artistic hobby. We better do this, we better do that. And so we do have, as a society, more bandwidth to get shit done. But as humans, we still are limited in a good way. Like, we're limited creatures. We're not infinite energy, infinite focus creatures. So and I guess, yeah, like I know a few people like that too, who are really burned, just incentivize themselves to maximize their education, which is good. It's obviously a positive, but and I'm not saying they shouldn't, like, at what cost have you done it? Oh no, but I'm saying every human has to make their own kind of decision on what their incentive is. I think if your incentive is to live a happy life, then in my opinion, you'll find that the best way to do that is balance, like, but it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking more money is more happiness.
What's
Yeah,
something
that's basically
interesting?
my personal story.
Something interesting is one aspect of why I put transcendence of dependence is also looking at the opportunity AI has for us to transcend the dependence of already established systems. So you can essentially start creating your own systems. And I'm not sure if all you guys have heard of vibe coding before. Most of you probably have, but pretty much a lot of software now, Princeps actually talked about it a bit. A lot of software now is way, way, way easier to create. Like, your ability to create your own social media app now is like probably 20 times easier and 100 times cheaper. So you could already imagine now how you don't need someone with, God's hand to be able to affect XYZ in society now. And in that way, AI actually gives the potential to transcend dependence in certain societal structures. Now, here's what's funny. A lot of those societal structures that cause people to kind of go blind to their own spirit, kind of like Jacob was talking about, those are going to be the ones that are going to be very AI-able, because those are very repetitive, highly defined tasks and responsibilities. That it's just kind of a matter of time before an AI agent can kind of do the thing instead. So as long as they semi-solve the safety problem of AI agents just going rogue. But even then, the way you're going to be doing it is you're going to be controlling an AI agent that does it, rather than just like doing it yourself in the same way. So that's a really big kind of opportunity. But one fear, not necessarily a fear, but one concern or recognition I have is a lot of people have like been stuck in that way of thinking for so long. They actually think that's what reality is. Like, they tie existence to that way of being. And it creates this like numbness. So I think it's gonna need a little bit of like a 1-2 slap in the face. Yo, wake up. look what's happening, sort of thing to jumpstart that. But that's definitely a thing there. I also, like, earlier, because here's one general thing with the dependence thing, because I know Princeps was like, oh, but now we just use a phone all the time. And so it's simple. Now I have a calculator at all times. But we're also being cracked all the time. And our audio is being recorded all the time. And that's the problem with radical dependency, especially if it's not in an aligned way. I give the example of the church. Or the Roman church at the time, saying like, you can only get to heaven if you go here and you do it this way, right? And my thoughts is, if technology is now easier to create as a result of AI, then people have more control over how they're going to leverage the benefits of AI. It's not leveraged in a way that sauces you too much in the process. You can say you leverage it wisely. So interesting thing, I think intelligence needs intelligence. So in order to maximize what you get from intelligence, you're going to need to become intelligent to do so. Or maybe the word is wise. You need to be wise to leverage intelligence, which is its own type of intelligence in the process. One example is like to be able to create open source systems where you can leverage the power of AI technology, but not in a way where, some government has control of what the right information is or something like that. As an example. So I think there's a duality, just like any tool, of how we are going to become less dependent and how we are going to become more dependent. And the discerning wisdom is deciding where to consciously become dependent on something, versus doing it out of the necessity of something placed by someone who's not even yourself. So, and I think a great example, because I don't think every technology is good. I know Princeps mentioned the point that change is good. I think change isn't good as an innate thing. I think progress is good, but that progress is change that's getting closer to our true goals. But change is just change. Like it's one way or another, right? So the example of social media, I think social media, how it was done, a lot of it was negative. Now it brought positive aspects, like the fact that you can now see what's going on in Palestine, for example. And no one can really stop that from happening. And a bunch of other things of the sort. Like it definitely brought lots of aspects to be able to share all this XYZ. Like the promise of Facebook is a true promise. Like the promise itself of connecting the world is a good thing. And I never want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I think there is an opportunity now to dump the bathwater and get more babies. You know what I mean? So just to put an analogy, right? So I guess that's one of my main takes with respect to that. Also in writing, specifically, because I also write, funny enough, Curtis, I also write some, like, right now I'm working on a book, metaphysics related. And I'm thinking a way to get my ideas out potentially is get the AI to start asking me questions about the book. And then I'll just answer it through voice and then take my own transcription and use it. Like that's one example. Another example is I like to voice type more than typing because I like the process of writing, but I actually don't like the process of going like, to get it down, especially if you're doing it for hours on end. Like I value the health of my wrists. Just as an example. Yeah, so that's going to be something. I mean, one of the main things I'm wanting to use it for is community related purposes, because I like to build communities and shit. But like, for example, finding the right profile of person from across the world that's more aligned. So oftentimes it's kind of a design problem. The amazing algorithm that can matchmake as a principle is often being used to matchmake you with videos that'll get you to stay on the app, rather than matchmake you with people to build the connection to get you off the app. Because the point of the tool is to transcend the tool, in a sense. Like the point of the tool is the destination. Like I think not necessarily like just loving the hammer, right? If we think of it in terms of destination, then that I think would be the crux. So and a lot of companies, because it's valuable that you overly rely on the tool so much, so you stay on it. I think AI now is a great example of that. The incentive structure of a lot of big AI companies is to have you keep using the AI more and more and more and more. And to need this specific company or this specific AI tool more and more and more and more, as opposed to a more general approach of how can you leverage AI as principle for this given task and not leverage it as well when you don't need it. That's maybe a more holistic utopian understanding, maybe not too capitalistic, but I think there could be a potential wise. I don't know. You guys think there's like a better way capitalism could be done in this case or something like that?
As who criticizes it, I probably should, but I don't have a better alternative. I just know it probably could be better. Maybe just meeting the needs of people who have like the basic needs, you know.
I've
Go
actually
ahead.
thought about it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was literally saying go ahead because you started talking. You go.
I've thought about it a little bit, and like I've played out this concentration of power that I mentioned earlier, and I try to figure out what are the ways we could prevent that from happening. And one of the ways that makes sense and is possible within the current societal structure is um, moving towards socialism. But it's generally not considered a good thing. But it would be a different kind of socialism. So it would be right. So these companies, for example, Microsoft, Apple, Google, all of these are publicly traded companies, and you can buy shares, so you can be part of the success. Like you can benefit from the success of it, potentially. What like if we play this out where the workforce is reduced further and further, and the efficiency is increased further and further, and the power is concentrated further and further, the only way to prevent that would be to distribute the the ownership of that power to more people. So a government could come in and literally buy the shares on behalf of all of its citizens, um, so that the company is not owned by one or two or 10 or 50 people. It's owned by millions of people. And whatever happens, all of those millions of people have a direct say in that because they are owners of that. So they have voting shares and all that kind of influence over all of these systems. That's one way that I've thought about how to prevent that.
So I thought a lot about this. Problem that we're not addressing is, are we even talking about capitalism when we take a look at our windows? Because I personally would say no. This is some bastardized stepchild variant of capitalism. And yeah, it's probably Ginger, so she could stay locked in the basement, but somebody let it out. In all seriousness, yeah, no, this is a fucking travesty. It's not. It's like we take a look at the East. Communism in China is not actual communism. It's a big ass control structure that enslaves like a bajillion people. Come over to the West. It's the exact same fucking thing, but a little more pretty. Yeah. If we are looking at capitalism, pure play, versus communism, pure play, both of them end up doing the exact same thing. They end up distributing the resources naturally available, worked through people on the land, to whoever needs it most. But that's not what we have. So the question doesn't really become how do we make capitalism work better? It would become how do we disengage with the current reality that crony capitalism has enslaved like billions of people, and we need to have money to live.
One thing that came to mind was I heard this idea on a podcast, which is like in order to fix a system like our world, we can't really think of it from the terms of like starting from scratch because you can't exactly wipe the slate clean. We already have this system here. But what I would kind of say, kind of echoing what Reis was saying about socialism, you don't necessarily have to just look at what the socialist economic structures have been and what the policies are, and then just implement those. But a good idea would just be in our capitalist world, we do have these resources that exist. We do have this money. We just need to address basic human needs. That's what I think. So we could make this system work if we fit into the current system a way to address all basic human needs. And I'm saying like this is probably the radical aspect, but just because Canada's here and then you got like, for example, Asia there or Africa there, it doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, Canada just helps Canada and America just helps America and then Africa does this all. And then no, like I'm saying the whole of the human race would have to kind of collaborate in a way and just make sure everyone has a shelter, food and water. And from there alone, I think productivity would just boom. We like if we really want to be a galactic society where I don't think it would be fair or feasible to do it. Maybe fairness is not the good aspect, but it wouldn't be feasible to do it while we still have slums here. Like imagine we go colonize Mars, we do all this, and then in Earth itself, you got like miserable conditions. It's like that would kind of suck. Like that's could happen. That could be the reality, but it would suck. So basic human needs being met would probably just allow for so many extra creatives, like yeah, like that needs to be the base, I think, as you said. Like that's where we start from. If we do that, then the actual structure beyond that doesn't even necessarily matter. Like just feed, shelter, water, all humans, and then from there, they themselves will be able to create their own industry, and they'll be able to either work, they'll be able to join in, and we could still be capitalists. It doesn't necessarily, it's not exactly inherently bad. It's just what is bad. We got to address that and then change it. We got to ask the question and then do what we can because it is possible. It's like there are resources that are finite, but the earth is the earth. It has what it has. You could spread it around in a way that's controlled and conscious. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, it is what it is. Like, no, we could make it something it isn't,
I agree.
That's remind me one of the things that I was really shocked was I once looked up the price for hepatitis medication in America. And in Pakistan, hepatitis is a very common thing. And, you can get the treatment for that from the government and it's free if you get it from the government. Otherwise, like if you buy it privately, the more kind of or premium version of the pills, it's like $150 essentially. For 3 months, you have to get one pill every day. And the same exact active ingredient, the same exact treatment in America is $86,000. The same exact one. So, uh, you know, even that's one of the other things that people say. Oh, in the U.S., like there's this huge debate about, oh, should healthcare be human right and universally available, or can we afford all of the cost of the healthcare if we do that? But you don't need you could reduce the cost of healthcare by 20 times and have excellent healthcare if you remove the greed part of it. Like if you solve the greed part that's like concentrated, because how much does it actually cost to make those pills? Like probably cost $15 or $10 maybe, right? But they're being sold at $86,000. And it's a deadly disease. Like it literally people die from this. So I don't know how to solve that greed though.
I'm just gonna voice Leighton. I know he's not. No, he can't speak right now, but just to voice his mind that's in my mind right now. Reality is not scarce. It's actually like the way we view reality, which is scarce, which causes scarcity, which is why greed is the actual crux, not why the greed, quote unquote, exists. Like you would think greed exists because there's scarcity, so then it becomes one man takes from the other. I think even the scarcity that truly exists, typically, the fact that you think someone else is going to be greedy, so he's going to share. It's kind of like the nuke problem, right? It's like, okay, now one person has a nuke, now I need a nuke, right? Because I don't trust what that guy's going to do, and then that guy already showed what he's going to do with his nuke, so now we definitely got to get nukes. So I think that's really what the funny enough, the world war right now that's kind of brewing up right now seems to be about that in some way. But like reality is not scarce, reality is actually abundant, which is why it's more of a design problem. Like it's about designating things accordingly to how it should be designated. Because there's no way something should be that much more expensive, life, threatening disease, this, that, and the third. The cure is there. It's just not available because of the price. That's what you would think, right? And I think the abundance in reality is only going to get more apparent in AI land. Yeah, but especially because, and that's just an aspect of intelligence. Like the more intelligence you have with you, the more you can do with what you have. So yeah, I really think it's a almost like a mindset, a vibrational thinking thing. That, once again, to quote Leighton, rather than what's claimed to be thought about, which is we don't have enough food or water. I think we got what we essentially need at the bare bones. Yeah, something like that. Curtis or Prabhu, you guys have any thoughts? I think I'm gonna run probably for a bit more and then wrap it up. I agree. That was very, very fire.
Fire, right? Yeah, I think it's a interesting thing to see about the greed and how things somewhat build up by the perspective itself. But that's kind of the whole idea. Even how we discuss this topic is just discussing about how we view things, right? In the end, and then that's what kind of makes me think about the transcendence itself. Back to the topic of the dependence. So if we can somewhat have this kind of um, infinite, how do you call it, like scenario within our heads, viewing things, or have lots of, how do you call it, if as a person I have my own biases, how to see things or how to think about things. But if as a person I can have how do you call it, awareness of how not to see things just by my own biases, or I can have like multiple scenarios of looking things. Yeah, I think that's the thing that I get from you guys. Just because of Noah was talking about how in the end it's not just about the greed, but how we somewhat view the greed itself. And so it's not why the greed is there, but you know, um, yeah, that's my thought. What do you guys think? Yeah. So probably if we're asking about, so it's more about our ability of questioning things, because our question is sometimes most probably is coming from our biases, right? But if we notice that our biases is actually build up from how we see things, and then we can somewhat aware of that, and then we have more scenario of how to see things. That's where the transcendence is. And if AI can somewhat view things like I think AI have the capability, or at least develop like thousands of scenarios within seconds, while human have like uh, their own biases to prioritize which scenario to to be developing, to be explored, right? But that's the thing of our limitation, I think. And if somewhat AI have that kind of even though they have like lots of scenarios within the calculation of the AI, but they can still prioritize lots of scenarios and give the human the scenarios. I think that's where my transcendence dependency on AI going to be developed, something like that. So you think you have one scenarios that you can do? No, you have like thousands of scenarios that you can do, but from the thousand scenarios that you can do, you can have like at least 100 scenarios that have the probability or the efficacy to be successful. And how you do this, so it will give like a vast amount of possibility to humans, not just when what we have now. ChatGPT is just like, okay, you have this and this somewhat that you can do, and that's it. It's all coming back to you. But if I have that kind of ability to give what I want, like the way I describe, I think that's where the transcendence of dependency will be uh available for human. Or I think that's where my dependency on AI will be transcend, something like that. Sorry, guys, it's early in the morning, so I hope you can understand me. Yeah.
No, I think I got it.
Coherent.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Very
Um,
interesting points. Yeah.
Yeah, because okay, so as a um, that's why I think collective intelligence is important. But I also still love collective human intelligence. Um, to view the same thing, I know even if someone's the biggest Einstein in history, um, just the amount of different angles you get from different people is always like it's priceless, pretty much. But then if you actually play out the case scenarios, especially if we're looking at like AI doom scenarios versus AI utopia scenarios or whatever, and you play out all those like real potential possibilities. What reminds me of is Doctor Strange.